is a Mini? Well, some call it the ultimate go-kart handling hatchback, and some call it the ideal small city runabout, and the others, well, it's more of a fashion statement than anything else. But for BMW Group, well, from now onwards at least, it's this, a fully electric Mini hatchback. Yep, that's right, even though they're still offering something called the Cooper C, which is powered by petrol, that is technically a very heavy facelift from the previous generation model. This new one here, well, that is fully electric only. So the most important question to ask now is this good enough to be the Mini? Well, to answer that question, they've flown us all the way here to sunny Barcelona, well, sunny for now, to find out. To be a Mini, you've got to start by looking like one. And even though this all-new model has grown a little bit compared to the previous generation, it's still got all of the signature Mini Cooper touches nailed just right. That's the classic tiny silhouette with the wheelbase stretched all the way to the edges of the car, the iconic 3-tier styling where the bodywork, the glass house and the roof are all clearly defined against one another, and perhaps most importantly, the round Mini lights. And if for some reason you don't like the round light signature, on this all-new model, they'll also let you choose your own for both the headlights and the tail lights. For me though, I'm just gonna stick to the round ones. But I think what truly signals the idea of this car is just how clean the bodywork is. There's almost zero character lines here on the side, and without the plastic claddings around the wheel arches and trims around the headlights, the entire car just feels so pure, almost like a representation of the powertrain underneath. Mini calls it charismatic simplicity, a throwback to the very first Mini that has won over so many hearts over the years. It's Mini reduced to its core, focusing only on the things that make a Mini a Mini. And for me, they've truly knocked it out of the park over here. You can also clearly see Mini's homage to the OG hatch on the inside, like the fabric-lined dashboard, the 2-spoke steering wheel, and of course the unmistakable center screen in the middle of the dashboard. Like the outside, the whole minimalist ethos has also been applied here into the cabin. The dashboard is plain and simple, there's no separate instrument cluster behind the steering wheel, and even the center console and armrest have also taken on a more simplistic form now that the gear lever has moved up into the toggle switch bar. As you'd expect though, there is a drawback when you start removing things inside. Now of course, I still wish that they've retained some of the physical controls, for example to control your air cons over here, but at least you still get a row of physical dials, including a very satisfying turn to start motion down here. And the screen itself, it's actually very responsive and very snappy to use, and there's even some very cute display modes and sounds to mimic the OG original Mini hatch. But what I really like about this car is just that it screams personality, it screams character. The Mini is all about fun, and there's no better way to show off its personality than inside the car, where you'll be spending all of your time. Well, like I said, there's all of the cute display modes on the screen over there, but I also really like all of the small details, like this little strap here on the steering wheel, as well as another one on top of the dashboard. These things really serve no purpose at all, but the fact that they are there just tells you exactly what this car is all about. Even the ambient lights on the dashboard uses a light projector behind the screen, giving it a unique, fun look at night that's truly unlike any other car out there. You can disagree with their design choices or even their material selection, but you can't argue that everything in here feels cohesive, as if every little thing has gone through a thought process to how it's all put together, that there's a reason and rationale behind their execution. And that, I think, just feels so much better than some of the newer cars that will offer you the whole 9 yards in equipment, but with everything just casually thrown in as if it's just ticking off a KPI box on a long checklist. But the one thing that makes a Mini truly a Mini is the way that it drives, and this one here, well, it really is just as fun as ever. Now it's got more power, and you can definitely feel that. This car here, the Mini Cooper SE, now makes 218 horsepower and 330 Nm of torque, and Mini says that's enough to get you from 0 to 100 km/h in 6.7 seconds. Now that's not exactly mind-blowing fast, but it's definitely not slow either. And as an electric car, you still get the instant torque and acceleration to make it feel a lot more nippy than it really is. But when you're driving a Mini, it's more than just the power. It's about their signature go-kart handling feel, and the good news is, this new one here definitely lives up to its nameplate. Come up to the corners and you immediately feel how sharp and direct the steering is. Well, you don't get much in terms of feedback through the steering wheel, but the fact that it is quite heavy really does make it quite sporty to drive. And it also gives you a lot more precise control when you're just chucking it into the corners. And in the corners is where the true magic happens, because it just feels like the car will just track and turn without any sort of drama at all, and it really is quite hard to induce any sort of understeer in this car. There's a lot of electronics magic going on behind the scenes, especially when you're in the DSC Sport mode, because of something called active yaw control that uses the brakes to subtly help you rotate the car into the corner, giving it a much more agile corner carving ability and a genuine hot hatch feel that makes you really want to behave like a little child around the bends. And they're also really serious about the whole go-kart thing. So much so that they've even named their sports mode the go-kart mode, that gives you a heavier steering feel, more responsive throttle, and perhaps most importantly, the unique sound design that even includes fake blow-off noises. It is a bit silly, but I have to say that it does really make it more engaging to drive. Now, one of the biggest complaints we've heard about the previous generation Mini Electric is its, well, honestly, horrendous range. Now there's even more good news here, because on the new Mini Cooper SE, they've now given it a bigger battery pack which has essentially doubled its driving range. With a 54.2 kWh battery pack, Mini says that the new Cooper SE can now travel for more than 400 km in a single charge. Now we of course didn't get to run the car flat in order to test that here, but even with our mountain passes around Barcelona, our car was still pretty economical, reporting a power consumption figure of just around 14 kWh per 100 km. A bigger battery does mean heavier weight, and this car here is about 250 kilograms or so heavier than the previous generation model, and you can definitely feel it in the way that it corners. But to be honest, I don't think it's really taking away much in its dynamic qualities. Now, I've said before that I do enjoy a little bit of body roll when it comes to the corners, and with that little bit of extra weight, the new Mini Cooper SE here really does feel very natural when it comes to cornering, because there's just that little bit of lean, and the way that it transitions from your left corners to your right corners, it's just so natural and so satisfying. According to the chief driving dynamics engineer, it's all down to the balance between unsprung and sprung weight. With that sorted out, the car can still feel fun and agile even with an increased mass, and of course, the lower center of gravity here also helps. Plus, the guy who tuned the car's dampers have literally worked at Mini for more than 15 years, so he definitely knew a thing or two about how a Mini should feel like. It really does still feel like a Mini in almost every way that it drives, and that includes that classic, slightly oversprung feeling in every Mini out there. Now this car is firm, so you'll definitely be feeling all of those road imperfections, especially on our roads back in Malaysia. But you know what? It's firm, but it's not actually uncomfortable. It's not crashy at all, and on the highways, it actually is quite a lot more comfortable than before. But the biggest improvement for me on this car is the regen braking. Now, on the previous generation model, the brake pedal is completely mechanical, which means the regen braking is tied to your throttle pedal, and every time you lift off from the throttle, you're just immediately bogged down because it defaults to high regen. Now on this car, they finally added something called brake blending, which means there's now a computer controlling how much regen braking you are getting every time you step on the brake pedal, instead of relying on the throttle pedal itself. So the car now feels a lot more natural when it comes to attacking the corners, and even on highways as well, it's a lot more intuitive because you just feel like you're driving a normal petrol powered car, and when you're attacking the corners, it just makes it feel a lot more flowy, a lot more enjoyable. And yeah, with all these little things, it really just makes this car so much more fun to drive. The biggest takeaway here is that even with a new electric heart, Mini clearly hasn't forgotten what this car is all about. The Mini Cooper has always been about fun, about character, and sometimes about fashion. And the best part with this one is that it's got all of that, but now with a bigger battery and more range. It is a good omen for what Mini's future might be, because their goal is to become an all-electric brand by 2030. And if what we have here is a sign for what's to come, well then, sign me up. But for now, I just can't wait for it to reach our shores here in Malaysia and drive it even more.